Direct hit title, hook style. I'm being tormented by my ex and his wife while I'm barely holding my life together. Imagine already fighting to get out of bed every day, trying to rebuild your life after heartbreak, only to find your ex and his wife stalking your peace. For this Redditor, torment didn't end with the breakup, it only began. Here's how she tells her painful story. When life already feels unbearable, the last people you expect to add to your pain are your ex and his new partner. But for one woman, what should have been the end of a toxic chapter turned into a nightmare of harassment, humiliation, and emotional torment. This is her raw, unfiltered story of survival, as shared on Reddit. Rock bottom, I don't even know where to start. Maybe with the truth. I'm tired. So goddamn tired. Every day feels like dragging a 100-pound weight across a desert, and no matter how much I push forward, I end up in the same place, empty, lonely, and barely holding myself together. When people talk about rock bottom, they usually describe a single moment, some dramatic collapse, like losing a job or catching a partner cheating. But for me, rock bottom wasn't a moment. It was a slow, endless slide. Bills stacking up on the kitchen counter. Nights spent staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'll make rent. Waking up already exhausted, like I had fought a war in my sleep. I live in a tiny one-bedroom apartment now. Peeling paint, a fridge that hums too loud, neighbors who scream at each other through thin walls. It's not much, but it's all I can afford since leaving him. Some days, I remind myself that leaving was the brave choice. Other days, I wonder if I've ruined my life. My job doesn't pay enough. I work long shifts, come home, and still can't cover everything. My car broke down 3 months ago, and I can't afford repairs, so I walk everywhere. Grocery bags digging into my arms, bus rides that eat up hours, rain soaking through my thin jacket. It's humiliating, but it's reality. And through it all, I've tried so hard to keep my head down, to heal, to move forward. I thought leaving him meant leaving the chaos behind. But instead, it feels like the chaos followed me here, clawed its way into my new life, and refuses to let go. Some nights, when I'm lying on my old mattress with the springs poking my back, I wonder if anyone even remembers I exist. I scroll through social media and see friends from school getting married, buying houses, having kids. And then there's me, eating instant noodles in silence, pretending the lump in my throat is hunger instead of grief. The hardest part isn't the money. It isn't even the loneliness. It's the voice in my head, the one that whispers maybe they're right about you. Maybe I am pathetic. Maybe I am the loser they say I am. I didn't used to think like this. I used to have dreams. I wanted to open a small bakery someday, make enough money to travel, maybe even start a family. But after everything that happened, my dreams feel like a cruel joke. Like a version of me that died years ago, and I'm just the ghost that's left behind. If I'm being brutally honest, some mornings I don't want to get up at all. I sit on the edge of my bed, staring at the cracked floor tiles, and wonder, what's the point? But then I force myself up because if I don't go to work, I don't get paid. And if I don't get paid, I don't eat. Survival is my only motivation right now. I thought things couldn't get worse than this. I thought once you hit bottom, the universe leaves you alone, gives you space to heal. But that's not my story. Because just when I was barely surviving, just when I thought I had nothing left to lose, they came back into my life. My ex and his wife. And instead of leaving me alone to rebuild, they decided to make my suffering their entertainment. I didn't know it then, but the torment was only beginning. The past that haunts me. People say hindsight is 20/20ths. Looking back, I can see all the red flags, all the warning signs, the way my ex chipped away at me piece by piece. But when you're inside it, when you're in love, you convince yourself the pain is normal. That this is just what relationships are supposed to feel like. We met when I was 22. I was fresh out of college, still clumsy, still figuring out who I was. He was older, charming in that dangerous kind of way. The kind of man who walked into a room and immediately commanded it. I remember the first time he noticed me. I felt chosen, special, like I had been plucked from obscurity and placed into the glow of his attention. At first, he was everything I thought I wanted. He made me laugh, brought me flowers just because told me I was beautiful in ways that made me blush. I fell hard and fast. My friends told me to slow down, but I didn't listen. I was convinced he was different, that he was it. But slowly, so slowly I almost didn't notice, the man I thought I loved began to change. Or maybe he was always like that, and I just didn't want to see it. He had a way of making little comments that seemed harmless at first. Are you really going to wear that? Do you need another slice of cake? Wow, you don't understand? I thought you were smarter than that. Each one was a pinprick, tiny enough that I brushed it off. But after years of it, I was bleeding inside. And then came the lies. The late nights at work. The phone turned face down whenever I walked into the room. The sudden showers the moment he got home. My gut screamed at me, but when I asked him about it, he'd flip it back on me. Why don't you trust me? You're paranoid. You're crazy. And I believed him. God, I hated myself for believing him. It all came crashing down one night when I found his phone unlocked on the couch. I hadn't planned to snoop, I swear I didn't. But the screen lit up with her name. A woman I'd met once at his office. The messages were undeniable. Intimate. Explicit. Full of the kind of affection he hadn't shown me in months. My heart shattered in that moment. I confronted him, shaking, crying, begging for some kind of explanation. And do you know what he said? He laughed. He actually laughed. Then he looked at me with that cruel smirk I'll never forget and said, "She makes me feel alive. You don't." 6 years. 6 years of my life, just discarded like trash. I left that night with nothing but a duffel bag and my dignity in pieces. I crashed on a friend's couch for weeks, sobbing into the cushions at night, wondering how I could have been so blind. But the thing about betrayal is, it doesn't end when you walk out the door. It sticks to you. It whispers in your ear when you're alone, convincing you that you weren't enough, that you'll never be enough. I thought leaving him would set me free, that the worst was over, that once I built a new life, he'd fade into the past like a bad dream. But that wasn't my story. Because just months later, I opened my phone to see photos of him. Not just with her, but with her in a white dress, his arm around her waist, smiling for the cameras. They got married, and the woman I once trusted enough to let into my home was now his wife. It should have ended there. I should have been able to block them both and never hear from them again. But what I didn't know then was that my nightmare was just beginning. Because the past doesn't always stay in the past. Sometimes it follows you. Sometimes it hunts you down. And sometimes it delights in tormenting you while you're already broken. The marriage that cut deep. There are certain moments in life that split you open in ways you never fully heal from. For me, one of those moments came on an ordinary afternoon when I wasn't looking for pain, but pain found me anyway. I was scrolling through my phone, killing time on my lunch break, when I saw it. A mutual friend's post. At first, it didn't register. A picture of him, standing under an arch of flowers, grinning wide. Then my eyes moved to the woman beside him, in a flowing white dress, holding his hand like she'd won something. Her. The woman he cheated on me with. The woman who had been inside my home, smiling at me like a friend, all the while sleeping with the man I thought I was going to marry someday. Now she was the bride, and he was her groom. I can't even describe the feeling that shot through me. It wasn't just heartbreak, it was humiliation, betrayal, rage, grief, all tangled into a knot that made me want to scream. My hands shook so badly, I almost dropped my phone. They looked happy, radiant even. He had that same crooked smile he used to give me in our early days, the smile that made me believe I was the only one. Now he was giving it to her. Publicly. Proudly. The comments under the photo made it worse. Congratulations, you two. Match made in heaven. So happy for you both. I wanted to write the truth under every comment. Do you know he cheated? Do you know she's the reason I cried myself to sleep for months? Do you know this isn't love, it's poison? But I didn't. I closed the app. And then I cried so hard my chest hurt. It wasn't that I wanted him back, God, no. It wasn't that I thought we still had a chance. It was that seeing them married felt like the universe laughing in my face. Like he had destroyed me and been rewarded for it. Like she had stolen everything and was now flaunting her victory for the world to applaud. For weeks after that, I couldn't escape it. Their wedding photos were everywhere, tagged by friends, shared on social media. Them cutting the cake, them dancing under fairy lights, him kissing her forehead like she was some precious jewel. And every time I saw it, I felt smaller, worthless, forgotten. I tried to remind myself. Pictures lie. Social media lies. They might look perfect, but behind the curtain, things could be very different. But that voice in my head, the one he planted years ago, kept whispering, "She's better than you. He's happier with her. You were just the stepping stone." That was the wound that cut the deepest. Not that they were together, not that they got married, but that I believed, even for a second, that they might be right. I deleted my accounts after that. I couldn't take the constant reminders. I thought if I shut the world out, I could finally start to heal. But healing isn't a straight line. It's not like you close a door and the pain stays behind it. It leaks under the cracks. It finds new ways to remind you that you're broken. And sometimes it doesn't just leak, it barges in. Because just when I thought I could hide, that I could disappear and finally be forgotten, the messages started. At first, they were short. A number I didn't recognize. No name. No photo. Just words on a screen. "He never loved you. You're pathetic. Look where you are now." I stared at those messages in disbelief.
Who would send them?
I knew. Deep down, I knew. I blocked the number. A new one appeared. And then another. And another. Each time I thought I was safe, that it was over, another cruel sentence would land in my phone like a knife to the chest. And with every message, the truth became clearer. They weren't satisfied with winning. They needed to destroy me completely. And I was too fragile, too tired, too broken to stop them. That's how the torment began. The first message. It's strange how something as small as a text message can change the entire course of your life. I remember the night so clearly. It was late, past midnight, and I was lying in bed staring at the cracks in my ceiling. Sleep hadn't come easy for me in months. My chest always felt tight, like my own body was trying to suffocate me. Then my phone lit up on the nightstand. At first, I thought it was spam. Unknown number. No name attached. But when I opened it, my stomach dropped. "He never loved you." Just 4 words. 4 words that stabbed deeper than I wanted to admit. I sat up, staring at the screen, my mind racing.
Who would send that?
My first thought was him. But then I imagined her, his new wife, typing it out gleefully, maybe even laughing as she pressed send. I tried to brush it off. Blocked the number. Told myself it was probably a sick prank. But I couldn't shake the heaviness in my chest. 2 days later, another one came. "You're pathetic." I froze in the middle of my living room, the message glowing in my hand. My blood went cold. This wasn't random. This was deliberate. Someone wanted me to hurt, and they weren't going to stop. The messages kept coming. Some short, some long. "No wonder he left. Everyone knows she's better than you. You'll die alone." Sometimes they came late at night. Sometimes in the middle of the day, when I was at work or standing in line at the grocery store. No matter where I was, the words always hit like a punch to the gut. I tried blocking every number, but it didn't matter. They always found a way back. It felt like I was being hunted, like there was no safe place, no moment of peace. I couldn't trust my phone anymore. Every time it buzzed, my stomach clenched in terror. I stopped sleeping. I stopped eating. Every time I closed my eyes, the words burned behind my eyelids. Pathetic, worthless, unloved. One night, I broke down completely. I sat on the floor of my bathroom, clutching my phone, tears streaming down my face. My reflection in the mirror looked hollow, ghostly. I whispered to myself, "Why won't they leave me alone? What did I do to deserve this?" But I knew the answer. I left him. I walked away. And in their twisted minds, that made me a threat to their happiness. Or maybe, deep down, I was a reminder of the lies they were living. Either way, they wanted me crushed. The worst part? A small part of me started believing the messages. I'd catch myself thinking, maybe I am pathetic. Maybe he never did love me. Maybe she really is better. Those words became a loop in my head, playing over and over until I couldn't tell the difference between my own thoughts and their poison. And that's when I realized, this wasn't just harassment. This was psychological warfare. They wanted me to break. They wanted me to vanish. And for a while, I almost let them win. But the story didn't end with those first messages. Because soon, it escalated into something much worse. Public encounters. Fake accounts. Humiliations designed to strip me of whatever little dignity I had left. This was only the beginning. And I had no idea how dark it was going to get. Public humiliation. If the messages were the first strike, what came next was the slow destruction of my dignity in public. It started small. A coworker pulled me aside one morning, frowning as she showed me her phone. Did you mean to post this? I stared at the screen in disbelief. It was my picture, one from years ago, when I was crying after a fight with him. My face red and swollen, mascara streaking down my cheeks. The caption read, "This is what desperation looks like." I hadn't posted it, but someone had made a fake account with my name and picture. The room spun. My heart pounded so hard I thought I would pass out right there in the office. I rushed to the bathroom and locked myself in a stall, scrolling through the account. They had posted old photos of me, some I didn't even remember taking. They twisted my words into captions, making me look unhinged, obsessed, pathetic. Hundreds of followers. Dozens of cruel comments. People laughing. People tagging others. And all I could think was, how did they even get these pictures? The answer came days later. I bumped into him and her at the grocery store. My ex, looking smug in his pressed shirt. Her, clinging to his arm like she had just won the lottery. I tried to ignore them, but as I turned the corner, I heard her voice, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Careful, don't let her see the camera roll. She'll steal your husband and your phone." Laughter echoed in the aisle. My ears burned. My hands trembled as I dropped the box of cereal I was holding. She smiled at me, all teeth. It wasn't just a jab. It was a confession. They had my photos. They had my life. And they were weaponizing it. I stopped going out after that. I avoided the grocery store, skipped work parties, pulled the blinds in my apartment tight. But the world kept creeping in. Fake accounts. Random messages from strangers calling me homewrecker or obsessed ex. Someone even emailed my boss, claiming I was unstable and harassing a married couple. Thankfully, he didn't believe it, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. The humiliation was everywhere. It was in my inbox, in my workplace, in the whispers of people I passed on the street. And the more isolated I became, the stronger they grew. One night, I sat in my car outside a cafe, too scared to go inside because I had seen her Instagram story geotagged there earlier. I gripped the steering wheel, shaking, whispering to myself, "Why me? Why are they doing this? Don't they have better things to do?" But deep down I knew why. Because my existence, my very survival outside of him, was proof that he wasn't the hero he pretended to be. Proof that maybe he wasn't as happy as he wanted the world to think. So they tried to erase me. And when they couldn't, they tried to rewrite me into the villain of their story. The lowest moment came at my niece's birthday party. I showed up with a gift, trying to be strong, trying to pretend I could still be part of normal life. But when I walked through the door, one of my cousins pulled me aside. She looked at me with pity in her eyes and whispered, "I'm sorry. I saw the posts. I didn't know things were that bad." I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her and tell her none of it was true. But instead, I just nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Because by then, I realized the truth. Once humiliation spreads, you can't control it. People will always believe the worst version of you. And that's exactly what they wanted. That night, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling, I made a quiet promise to myself. I couldn't live like this anymore. I couldn't let them win. Something had to change. And if they wanted a war, maybe it was time I stopped being their victim. The breaking point. There comes a moment in every storm when you realize you can't keep standing in the rain. For me, that moment came one night when I woke up to banging on my apartment door. It was after 2 a.m. My heart nearly stopped in my chest. I froze in bed, barely breathing, straining to listen. The knocking grew louder, more aggressive. I crept to the peephole, my hands trembling. Empty hallway. But just as I was about to step back, a voice cut through the silence. "Pathetic little bitch. We know you're in there." I staggered backward, clutching my chest. It was her voice. I'd recognize that venom anywhere. Then laughter.
2 voices this time.
Both of them. My ex and his wife. Standing outside my home. I pressed my back against the wall, tears blurring my vision. They stayed there for minutes that felt like hours, pounding on the door, jeering, throwing insults. And then silence. When I finally dared to open the door, a piece of paper was taped to it. A printed photo of me leaving work, looking tired, with the words scribbled across in red marker. "Everyone can see what you really are." Something inside me broke that night. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't live like prey. I curled up on the floor, sobbing until my body ached. The walls of my apartment felt like they were closing in, suffocating me. For the first time, I thought about ending it all. Not out of weakness, but because I couldn't imagine surviving another day like this. But then something strange happened. As I stared at that cruel note, a voice in my head whispered, "They want this. They want you gone. If you give up now, they win forever." And suddenly, the tears stopped. My chest still heaved, my eyes still burned, but a flicker of something else sparked inside me. Anger. Pure, white-hot anger. The next morning, I stood in front of the mirror, studying my reflection. My face was pale, my eyes sunken, but behind them was something fierce I hadn't seen in months. I whispered out loud, "No more." That day, I made my first move. I started documenting everything. Every message, every fake account, every cruel note. Screenshots, timestamps, photographs. I spoke to my landlord about installing cameras outside my door. I filed a police report, even though I knew how little they usually cared about domestic drama. But it wasn't just about the authorities. It was about me reclaiming control. If they wanted to play war, I was done being unarmed. Still, the nights were the hardest. The fear didn't vanish overnight. Every sound outside my window made my body jolt. Every buzz of my phone made my stomach clench. But I started writing again. Journaling. Pouring every ounce of pain and rage onto paper. And in those pages, I realized something I hadn't dared to admit. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was preparing. The breaking point wasn't just about despair. It was about transformation. And though they didn't know it yet, the games they played had lit a fire in me. One that wasn't going out anytime soon. The fight back. The thing about being pushed to your breaking point is this. Once you've survived it, there's nothing left to fear. I woke up the morning after that long, brutal night with a strange calm in my chest. My hands no longer trembled when I picked up my phone. My voice didn't waver when I looked in the mirror. They wanted me broken. But I wasn't broken anymore. I was sharpening. The first step was silence. I stopped reacting to their games. No more crying over messages. No more ranting to friends. No more showing fear. If they wanted attention, I would starve them of it. I created new emails, new phone numbers, even a new social media account under a different name. My old ones? I locked them down, private, untouchable. Then, quietly, I began to build my case. Every cruel post, every late-night message, every incident, I documented it all. A digital graveyard of their malice, stored neatly in folders. And then I made my second move. I reached out to people they had fooled. The coworkers who had seen the fake account. The cousin who whispered at my niece's party. I showed them the evidence. Screenshots, timestamps, photos. Their eyes widened. Their faces hardened. Slowly, the whispers shifted. Pity turned into outrage. Their lies began to unravel. And I didn't stop there. The next time I saw them in public, it was at a cafe. They walked in, all smug smiles and hand-holding, expecting me to shrink away, like always. But instead, I stood my ground. I looked her dead in the eye and said, loud enough for everyone around to hear, "You should be more careful about the accounts you create. The police are very interested in harassment cases these days." Her smile faltered. His face twitched. For the first time, they looked nervous. I didn't even wait for a response. I gathered my things, lifted my chin, and walked out. And it felt intoxicating. But the real fight wasn't just about reclaiming my dignity. It was about showing them that I wasn't afraid anymore. So, I started living again. I went to the grocery store without glancing over my shoulder. I posted a photo online, not of me crying or broken, but smiling, radiant, alive. The caption was simple, "Still here." Within minutes, the fake account tried to twist it. But this time, the comments weren't on their side. People defended me. People called them out. And for the first time, I felt the tide turn. Of course, they didn't back down easily. The messages grew nastier. The encounters more deliberate. But I was ready now. Every word they threw at me only fueled my resolve. Every cruel laugh only sharpened my edge. I wasn't playing defense anymore. I was planning something bigger. Because this wasn't just about surviving their torment. It was about ending it. For good. Exposing them. For months they had painted me as the villain. A pathetic, unstable ex who couldn't let go. But I had been patient. I had gathered proof. And now it was time to show the world the truth. It started with a folder. A neat, organized collection of screenshots, emails, fake accounts, and recorded voicemails. Each piece alone was a drop of poison. Together, it was an ocean of evidence. I sent it anonymously to a friend of hers. Not a close friend, but the kind of person who thrived on gossip. Within hours, whispers began to spread. The story flipped. Suddenly, people weren't laughing at me. They were laughing at them. "Wait, they've been stalking her? Are you serious? That's psychotic." Their perfect couple image began to crack. But I wasn't done. I set up a meeting with my boss and HR, laying out everything they had tried to sabotage me with. The fake emails, the harassment, the smear campaign. I'll never forget the look on my boss's face.
Shock.
Anger. Sympathy. "Why didn't you come to us sooner?" he asked softly. I shrugged, my voice steady for the first time in months. Because I wanted to be sure. Now I am. From that day forward, work became my safe place again. The lies couldn't touch me there anymore. The final strike, though, was public. I posted a long, carefully worded message online. Not a rant. Not a sob story. Just the facts. I shared pieces of the harassment. Screenshots of messages. Proof of fake accounts. The note they left on my door. I didn't name them directly, but I didn't have to. Everyone already knew. The comments poured in. Support. Outrage. People tagging them, demanding answers. And for the first time, I didn't feel like prey. I felt like someone reclaiming her name. The fallout was immediate. They tried to play it off at first, pretending I was exaggerating. But the evidence was undeniable. Their friends distanced themselves. Their reputations, once polished and enviable, turned toxic overnight. And me? For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Not because they stopped entirely, but because they had been unmasked. The shadows they hid in were gone. The world could finally see them for who they truly were. That night, I slept peacefully. No racing heart. No fear of my phone buzzing. Just silence. And in that silence, I realized something important. I hadn't just exposed them to others. I had exposed them to myself. The illusion of their power over me was shattered. And I would never bow to them again. Their revenge backfires. The thing about people like them is this. When you corner them, they don't back down. They lash out. And that's exactly what they did. A week after my post went viral in our little circle, I woke up to dozens of missed calls and messages. Friends, coworkers, even distant relatives. "Are you okay?" Did you really do this? Why would you post something like that? Confused, I logged onto social media. My stomach dropped. They had created a new account, this time with my full name, my picture, even photoshopped screenshots of messages where I supposedly admitted to being obsessed, unstable, even violent. They spun the story. According to them, I was the stalker. I was the one harassing them. They were the poor victims of a jealous, bitter ex. And people believed it, at least at first. The lies spread fast. Coworkers avoided me in the halls. My aunt called me crying, asking if it was true. For a moment, I felt that old fear claw its way back into my chest. The humiliation, the helplessness. But this time, I wasn't the same person I had been months ago. This time, I was prepared. I released more evidence. Screenshots of the voicemails. Video footage from the cameras outside my apartment, capturing them banging on my door. Copies of the police report I had filed weeks earlier. And I didn't just release it quietly. I released it publicly, side by side with their fake account. Believe what you want, I wrote, but here's the truth. The reaction was explosive. People who had doubted me before now rallied to my side. Those who had blindly supported them suddenly went silent. And the two of them? Their desperation showed. They kept posting, kept spinning lies, but the more they tried, the more pathetic they looked. Every attempt to destroy me only backfired. Every lie they told crumbled under the weight of proof. It was like watching a house of cards collapse in slow motion. The turning point came when one of her closest friends messaged me privately. "I'm so sorry," she wrote. "I didn't know. She told us you were crazy, but after seeing everything, I can't believe I defended her." And just like that, their inner circle cracked. People started leaving them, unfollowing, cutting ties. The couple who once looked untouchable was now radioactive. I should have felt nothing but triumph. And in a way, I did. But more than that, I felt relief. Because for the first time, the truth wasn't just mine to hold on to. It belonged to everyone. And no matter what they tried, they could never take that away again. The sweetest part wasn't watching their reputations burn. It was knowing they had destroyed themselves trying to destroy me. And I didn't even have to lift a finger in the end. Finding my strength again. For so long, my life had been a battlefield. Every day a new attack. Every night another round of torment. But once the dust began to settle, I found myself standing in the wreckage, still here, still breathing. And for the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was living. I started small. A walk in the park without glancing over my shoulder. A trip to the grocery store where I didn't feel like everyone's eyes were on me. The world hadn't changed, but I had. The whispers didn't sting anymore. The looks didn't make me shrink. Because I knew the truth, and I had made sure everyone else knew it too. And that gave me power. Therapy helped too. I had resisted it for months, telling myself I didn't need it, that I could handle things on my own. But sitting across from someone who didn't judge me, who simply listened, was like learning to breathe again. I talked about the betrayal, the humiliation, the nights I thought I wouldn't make it through. And slowly, I realized something. None of it was my fault. Their cruelty wasn't proof of my weakness. It was proof of their fear. Work became my sanctuary again. The same coworkers who had once whispered now stopped by my desk with smiles and small talk. My boss gave me more responsibility, trusting me again. Each task I completed, each project I finished, was another brick in the foundation I was rebuilding for myself. I wasn't defined by their lies anymore. I was defined by what I chose to do next. And outside of work, I found joy in little things. Coffee in the morning sunshine. Music that made me dance around my kitchen. Books that pulled me into worlds where heartbreak wasn't the ending, but the beginning of something stronger. Piece by piece, I stitched myself back together. Not into the person I had been before, she was gone. But into someone new. Someone fiercer. Someone unbreakable. One evening, I passed by the cafe where I had once confronted them. For a moment, I considered walking in, just to see if they were there. But then I laughed to myself. because it didn't matter anymore. Whether they saw me thriving or not, whether they still tried to poke at me from the shadows, none of it mattered. Their power over me had been shattered, and I had built something far stronger in its place. I realized then that strength isn't about never breaking. It's about breaking and still finding a way to stand again. And that's exactly what I had done. Rebuilding my life. After the storm, life didn't suddenly become perfect. Healing isn't a straight line, it's a slow climb, with stumbles along the way. But for the first time in years, I wasn't weighed down by their shadows. I was free to imagine a future again. I started with my apartment. The place that had once felt like a prison became a project of renewal. I repainted the walls, swapped out old furniture, hung new photos that represented joy instead of pain. Every brushstroke, every little change, was like peeling away the layers of torment they had tried to suffocate me with. By the time I was done, it no longer felt like the place I had cried myself to sleep in. It felt like home. I reconnected with friends, too. The ones I had pushed away during my darkest months welcomed me back with open arms. At first, I was nervous. What if they still believed the lies? What if they looked at me with pity? But instead, they looked at me with pride. "You're stronger than you know," one of them said as we sipped coffee together. "You didn't just survive them. You rose above them." Her words sank deep. And for the first time, I believed them. Work flourished. Opportunities opened up. Promotions, projects, chances to prove myself not just as capable, but as resilient. I wasn't the girl with drama anymore. I was the woman who had weathered a storm and kept moving forward. And with every success, I grew lighter. It was like rediscovering the version of myself I thought I had lost. But the biggest change was within me. I no longer measured my worth by someone else's opinion. Not his. Not hers. Not the strangers online. I set boundaries. I said no when I needed to. I chose people who chose me back. And little by little, I built a life that wasn't about survival. It was about joy. One day, while walking home, I passed a couple laughing together on the street. For a split second, I thought of them, of all the pain they had caused me. But then I shook my head, smiling to myself, because they no longer mattered. They were just a chapter in my story, not the ending, not even close. And my story was far from over. Rebuilding my life wasn't about forgetting what happened. It was about refusing to let it define me. And in that choice, I found a freedom I had never known before. Closure. Closure isn't always about confrontation. Sometimes, it's about acceptance. I realized I didn't need an apology from them. I didn't need them to admit what they did. Because I already knew the truth. And that was enough. One evening, I found an old box hidden in the back of my closet. Inside were memories I had shoved away, photos of him, gifts from the early days, little notes he once wrote. For years, I had kept them, thinking maybe one day they would mean something different. But as I looked at them now, all I saw was weight. Heavy, suffocating weight. So, I made a decision. I packed everything into a bag, walked to the park, and sat by the water. Slowly, one by one, I let them go, tearing the notes, scattering the pieces into the trash, tossing the trinkets that once tied me to him. Each release felt like a breath I had been holding for years. By the time the bag was empty, I felt lighter than I had in a decade. I whispered to the night air, "You don't own me anymore." And for the first time, I meant it. The new me. The next chapter of my life didn't look like revenge. It looked like peace. I started new hobbies. I traveled, short trips at first, then farther ones. I met people who didn't know my past, who saw me not as a victim, but as someone vibrant and alive. For the first time, I wasn't surviving. I was living. There was one moment that stands out. Months later, I saw them. My ex and his wife. In public, by chance. They noticed me too. For a split second, I braced myself, waiting for a smirk, a cruel word, another attempt to break me. But it never came. Instead, I simply smiled. Not at them, but for myself. Because I wasn't afraid anymore. They had no power over me. They looked smaller than I remembered. And maybe, just maybe, they realized it too. Walking away that day was the final closure. Not because I won, but because I no longer cared about winning. I had built a life that didn't include them. And that was the greatest victory of all. Now, when I tell my story, I don't tell it with shame. I tell it with strength. Because yes, I was tormented. Yes, I was broken. But I rose again. Stronger. Braver. Wiser. And if there's anyone out there who feels trapped the way I once did, I want them to know. You can rise too. Reflections. Looking back now, I can see the storm for what it was, a test. At the time, it felt endless. I thought I would never escape. I thought my pain would define me forever. But standing here today, I know the truth. I was never broken. I was only bent. And I straightened myself again. I reflect often on what I lost. Yes, they stole years of my peace. They tried to crush my spirit. They tried to rewrite my story into something ugly. But in the process, they gave me something they never intended: strength. If I could survive their torment, I could survive anything. And that thought has become my anchor. I've learned boundaries. I've learned the value of silence when provoked. I've learned that not everyone deserves access to me. But most importantly, I've learned that my worth isn't tied to anyone else's opinion. Not an ex. Not his wife. Not the lies they spread. Only me. And when I catch myself thinking about the past, I don't feel bitterness anymore. I feel gratitude. Not for the pain itself, but for the person it shaped me into. A brighter tomorrow. The future no longer feels like something I have to fear. It feels wide, open, waiting. I don't know exactly what tomorrow will bring. None of us do. But I know this: it will not bring the same chains I once carried. Because I've cut them loose. I see myself laughing more now. Smiling without forcing it. Sleeping peacefully. Small things that once felt impossible. I have built a circle of people who uplift me, who see my value, who never make me question if I'm enough. And more importantly, I see myself clearly again. I am enough. Always was. Always will be. Sometimes, people ask me if I regret it all, if I wish I had never met him, never gone through the torment. And my answer surprises even me: no. Because without those scars, I wouldn't carry the strength I do now. Without the darkness, I wouldn't appreciate the light. Without the storms, I wouldn't cherish the calm. So when I think of tomorrow, I don't see shadows of them. I see me, standing tall, unapologetic,
Free.
My story doesn't end with torment. It begins with survival. It continues with strength. And it shines with hope. Because tomorrow is mine.